Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Michael. You're watching IDB, and in this video, I want to share my experience using an Android phone. So I have been a lifetime iPhone user, and in my opinion, I think it's a good idea every now and then to jump out of the walled garden of Apple products and see what the other side offers. So I have a lot of thoughts and opinions I want to share with you in this video. So let's go ahead and jump in right now. So if you follow me over on Twitter, you probably know that I love to trash talk Android phones. And after reading over some of my old tweets, I start to think that maybe this isn't that fair since I hadn't used an Android phone in probably 4 years. So I went ahead and picked up the latest and greatest Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. This thing retails in my home province for just under $1,800, which is significantly more money than my iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is already a very expensive phone. So this is the most premium, most expensive Android phone that you can get right now. I want to give myself the most premium Android experience so I could see what it's like. And I want to break this video into two simple parts: things I liked and things I didn't like. So let's just go ahead and start with things I liked. The first thing is the fingerprint sensor. In my opinion, this is just a better way to unlock your phone. If I'm laying in my bed with my pillow covering half of my face, I can't use Face ID. Sometimes the sun is hitting my face and it's too bright and Face ID just won't work. Well, whenever I'm using this phone, the fingerprint reader works literally every single time. And the best part is I can have the phone sitting flat on a table like this and I can still unlock it and check anything that comes in. So in my opinion, this is just objectively a better way to unlock your phone. Do I think that Face ID on the iPhone is still a great technology? Yes, of course. It is still very fast and fluid. You don't have to think about it. It just works. You can swipe up and unlock. However, like I said, some of those scenarios, Face ID just doesn't work, and the fingerprint reader on the Samsung phone is just always reliable, and it's always working right there. So I would love an iPhone that had Face ID and an under-display fingerprint reader, but I guess we'll never get that. But like I said, after using this Android phone for a few days, I can objectively say that the fingerprint reader is definitely a much better way to unlock your phone. And next up is the boxy design. So this is more for this Samsung phone specifically, rather than just all Android phones. But this S24 Ultra, it almost looks futuristic in the way that they designed this phone. It almost feels like a raw slab of titanium that they just slapped a screen on. It definitely isn't as comfortable in the hand as the iPhone because, as you can see, this corner is very sharp and it's going to dig into your hand a lot when you're using it. However, that doesn't change the fact that this phone still looks way more futuristic than the iPhone, in my opinion. I think the bezels are about the same on these two phones. Now, I have a dark wallpaper on my iPhone, so it's a bit tougher to tell. Actually, I still think that the iPhone has slimmer bezels. But in my opinion, because of the aspect ratio, I think this just looks a little bit more futuristic. Not to mention, you actually just get more usable screen space with an aspect ratio like this. So when you're watching a YouTube video, for example, it just makes so much more sense not having any of the corners cut out, taking away your content. So in my opinion, even though it's going to dig into your hand when you're using it, the aspect ratio on this phone is definitely a lot better for me, and I actually think I prefer it over the iPhone. And next up, this one is just for all Android phones in general. It is the open home screen. It is just so much nicer unlocking my phone and having a home screen where I can just have a little bit of open space to see my wallpaper. On the iPhone, you literally have to fill up your home screen. And if you don't, everything is going to be at the top. Now, there are workarounds in iOS. Before you comment down below, I know that there are workarounds to have an open looking home screen like this on the iPhone, but it is just that. It's a workaround. In Android, it's built in natively. If I want to move my widget up here, I can do that. I can move my applications anywhere I want. It just feels like your home screen can be a little bit more open on Android and have a bit more room to breathe. And I really feel like I can appreciate wallpapers more on Android just because of all the placement options you have for widgets and apps on the home screen. And next up, this is another feature which is just exclusively for the S24 Ultra, and it is the S Pen. The S Pen is a really cool feature on a smartphone, and no other smartphone has a stylus built right in. I remember when Samsung used to make the high-end S line phones, and they also made the Note phones. But here they've actually combined both phones. So now you get the best of both worlds. You get the giant battery and all the features from the S level phones, but you also get the stylus from the Note phones. And the stylus is actually really useful. There are a few things I love using the stylus for on this phone. The first one, which I found pretty cool, was the camera. So it's pretty cool how in the camera I can simply use the S Pen as a shutter and take photos. You can also do certain gestures. You can zoom in just by doing gestures in the air like this, even though it doesn't work that well. You can also flip around the camera. So if you do this, you can flip it to the front facing camera and then back to the rear facing camera. And then when you are in certain menus as well, you can simply scroll just by flicking the S Pen in the air. And it feels really, really futuristic. And it's just a feature that iPhones cannot have because they don't support a stylus. And then when you take the S Pen out of the phone, you're gonna see that we have a little floating window on the side that looks like an S Pen. And if you click on this, you can see all the different options that you have. So you can choose a Smart Select, which is pretty much a small version of a screenshot. You can choose anything on the screen and select it like this and take a screenshot of it. You can also copy the text right from that screenshot, which is something that the iPhone does have. However, you don't get the stylus to do it with. You can choose to share that photo, you can download it, and a few other options at the bottom. One of my other favorite things is starting a note right from here. So if you click on Create Note, you can start writing anything down right on the phone just like this. This actually was very, very useful earlier for me just today. I was doing some work and I needed to write down a phone number really quickly, and I took out the S Pen, created a new note, and I was able to write it out really quickly. And then a few other things that the S Pen can do. When you are watching a video or listening to music, you can actually use the S Pen to skip or fast forward. So here I can fast forward just by flicking the S Pen to the right. I can go to the next video just like this. I can pause the video just by clicking it. So this is going to be very, very handy if you don't have any hands available, or as the YouTuber I watch, Flossie Carter, mentioned, if you're eating dinner and your fingers are all greasy and you want to pause your YouTube video or skip to the next video, you can simply use the S Pen instead of making your phone all greasy. So again, it's just a feature that the iPhone doesn't have because it doesn't have a stylus, and it just makes the phone feel a lot more special because it's a feature that no other Android phones have. And then another feature I enjoy using is pop-up floating windows. I just used this earlier today when I was getting some work done. I was in the browser on a specific web page and I needed to use the calculator. So I was able to swipe over and then grab the calculator, and I was able to drag it for a pop-up window. This is a feature that the iPhone just doesn't have for whatever reason, and it's very, very handy on the Samsung phone. And another very small thing I like about this phone, and I don't know why the iPhone doesn't have this, is time until charged. It was very nice that when I plugged this in last night, on the lock screen at the very bottom, it showed exactly how long until the phone was going to be fully charged. That is a very, very handy feature, especially if you have to charge your phone on the way out of the house, and I have no idea why the iPhone doesn't have that. Some other software features I like about this phone include the edge panels. You just saw me use it earlier in the video, but on these Samsung phones, you're able to swipe over from the side. You can get a quick launcher to some of your applications. You can have a bunch of tools like a flashlight. You can also have a ruler. You can have a level, a tally counter, and a compass. You can also get the weather and a bunch of other widgets which are right on these edge panels, as they call them. So a very, very useful software feature right here. And then the final feature I want to show you that I love on this phone is the Smart AI Circle Lookup feature. I don't exactly know what it's called, but it allows you to circle anything on your screen and look it up. So I'll show you what this does. Inside of Chrome, here is an article, for example. If I press and hold on the home button, you can see it goes into this Google AI lookup menu type thing. And if you circle anything, you're able to look it up just like this really quickly. And as you can see, it recognized that Samsung phone in the screenshot, and it gives me other images related to that exact phone. It is very, very smart because as you can see, it gave me images that are pretty much exactly the same. And it actually gave me this exact same image as the one I circled. It's also very useful in the camera. So I was out and about for a walk yesterday, and I saw a tree. and I held up my camera to the tree, and then I pressed and held on the center button, and then I circled that tree in the viewfinder, and Google was able to tell me what type of tree that was. So a very, very cool and futuristic type AI feature. I just hope that Apple can bring some level of that AI intelligence to the iPhone, because when we get features like this on Android, it really makes us iPhone users feel jealous just because we don't have any of that intelligence quite yet on the iPhone. So I talked about everything I liked about this phone, but now it's time to talk about some of the stuff I didn't quite like. The first thing is simply all of the ads in all of the applications, more specifically, all of the Samsung applications. I still don't know why Samsung does this, but when you spend this much money on a phone, there should absolutely be 0 ads inside all of the applications. But when you open up an application, you're getting ads at the top, way too many than you should be seeing. I don't think you should be seeing any ads. So in my opinion, that is definitely a bad thing. I do not want to see any advertisements on my $1,900 phone. And the next thing is just random Android glitches. When I see some of these glitches occurring on this phone, it makes me feel like, oh God, nothing has changed with Android. And some of these glitches are still here that I just don't see on the iPhone. One specifically is that I have a Canadian eSIM in this phone, but as you can see, there's that little R next to my service status indicator, and the phone for some reason thinks I'm roaming. Even though I'm not roaming, I'm at home, I haven't left the country in a year, but the phone thinks I'm roaming and I have no idea why. And because it thought I was roaming, I had a really weird glitch where it showed the roaming clock on the lock screen, and I had to figure out a way to go and shut that off inside of settings. So that's a very strange bug. Another one is the Samsung Galaxy store, or whatever it's called, thinks that I'm in Quebec. I don't know why. I live in Alberta. I'm not in Quebec. I don't speak French. But as you can see, everything in the Galaxy store is just in French, and I have no idea how to change this because the rest of my phone is in English. So it's really small things like that that are a bit annoying. And there's also one other thing in my opinion, and I know some people are going to come for me in the comments when I say this, but scrolling on an Android phone it's just terrible. I don't care if the phone is 370 hertz, it is never going to be as smooth as an iPhone. You can say anything you want in the comments, but I will literally take a 60 hertz iPhone scrolling Twitter over a million hertz Android phone. I don't think it's the refresh rate, I just think it's the way the phone loads content. But it doesn't feel natural. I don't know what it is, but every time I scroll Twitter, I don't know if it's the content that's loading, but you just get that little jitter when you're scrolling, and it's really hard to portray on video. When I pick up the iPhone and I start scrolling, it just feels so much more natural. You can see when I do that first flick, it doesn't scroll as fast. And I really think that's all the work that Apple puts in with their human interface team. It just feels wrong on the Android phone, and I don't know how to describe it. There's something different about scrolling, and when I do that first flick, I feel like it goes way too fast, and sometimes the loading of the content is slower than the scrolling, and it jitters a bit. And like I said, it's really hard to explain, but scrolling on Android phones is just terrible, and I don't think it'll ever be fixed, because this is exactly the same as I remember it about 4 years ago when I had my other Samsung phone. And some other small things I don't like have to do with the design. More specifically, it's the design uniformity. You can see that the shapes of the icons just don't match the shape of the widgets. And then this widget doesn't match this widget, and the spacing between these two is not uniform like this. Just the entire design looks a little bit off. And then when you look at the iPhone, everything looks more polished. Like it's a very small thing, but you can see that the spacing between the widgets is the same as the spacing between the icons. And the corner radius on the icons is the same as the corner radius on the widgets. Not to mention that the corner radius on the widgets just looks a lot nicer than the corner radius on the Android widgets. It's a very small thing, but I definitely think it makes a difference when you're using this every single day. You want to have nice software design to look at, and I still think that iOS looks a lot better. So that is my experience using an Android phone. Am I going to be switching my main SIM card into the Android phone? Well, the answer is unfortunately going to be no, just because I still have to use iMessage and FaceTime on my iPhone. It's very important to me, and I know there it is again with that phrase, the ecosystem, but Apple really does have me locked into the ecosystem. Something as small as all of my photos. I guess that's not a small thing, but all of my photos are in iCloud photo library. And if I switched over to an Android phone, it would be really hard to start using Google Photos when all 15,000 of my personal photos are in iCloud. So it's really small things like that that just keep me locked into the ecosystem. However, I still think I may keep this phone just as a work phone, because when I'm out on the field at a job doing an install or a consultation, it's really nice to have this stylus, and it just feels like I can get more work done on this phone. You heard me mention that floating window thing before. You can just be way more productive on the Android phone than you can on the iPhone. However, when it comes to just using my personal phone day to day, I still think that I'm going to use my iPhone as my personal phone, but I do think this is going to make for a good backup / work phone. So I want to hear your guys' opinions, so let me know in the comments what you thought of this video. Let me know if you would ever consider a switch over to Android, and if you are staying on the iPhone, let me know what is that one feature that is stopping you from switching over to an Android phone. I also want to hear what you guys think of this new phone. So completely forgetting about the iPhone, let me know your objective thoughts on the Samsung S24 Ultra, because objectively, this is a really good phone. So that's going to do it for this video. Don't worry, in the next video, I'll be back talking about the iPhone. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. My name is Michael, and I'll see you in the next one.